Welcome to the Rebel Caravan. I'm Tony Cordasco, along with UNLV Director of Athletics, Desiree Reed-Francois. And coming up, we're going to go behind the whistle. We will have a conversation and a Q&A session with first-year UNLV football defensive coordinator, Peter Hansen. We invite you to ask questions. You can use the Q&A Zoom feature. And we've got a lot of great prizes up for grabs today. We have a Nike and Gatorade swag pack, and also a coveted UNLV football jersey. So get on board. We'd love to hear from all of you. And welcome one and all. First, we'd like to open up today with Desiree Reed-Francois. And Desiree, as you head into now your fourth athletic year on campus, that's hard to believe, but you, like many, face a lot of new challenges.
Sure. Yes, we all do. First of all, thank you, everybody, for being here. You're very much appreciated for caring enough to spend an hour with us and for caring about the Rebels. We know that it's a very challenging time. It's been a challenging time, not just the pandemic, the social injustice, and we all feel it. And I can assure you that we have open hearts. And while we recognize that UNLV is one of the most diverse campuses in the country, and our athletic department is one of the most diverse as well, we can all always get better. And we're committed to continuing the conversation. We've had some great ones with our student athletes and our coaches, and we're going to continue that. It's a marathon, not a sprint, but we're firmly committed to making sure that our student athletes always feel valued and that we have an inclusive environment so they can achieve their hopes and dreams.
And
now
today,
there's, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but as we look forward into the fall, there's a lot to be hopeful for. I look outside my window when I'm in my office and I can see Allegiant Stadium. It's this $2 billion best in class, best in the world stadium. But it's a stadium and it's a symbol. And it's a symbol of hope, it's a symbol of light, and it's a symbol of the things to come. And it's an opportunity for all of us to link arms and change the trajectory of UNLV football. So I'm really excited about the future. And I'm also really excited to share my expertise in cover 2 with Coach Hansen. I'm just kidding. But I know that most people really would rather hear from Coach Hansen. So Tony, I'll turn it over to you all to talk some in-depth football.
Thank you. And I'd like to introduce the new Rebel defensive coordinator, Peter Hansen. He comes to UNLV from Stanford. Hansen spent the last 6 seasons at Stanford coaching inside linebackers. He had a couple of stints there in Palo Alto on the farm. He's actually a Palo Alto guy because he grew up there. He played high school football under his dad. He went to the University of Arizona. We won't hold it against him as Rebel fans. And then he went back to Palo Alto, where he was an assistant coach under his dad. And he wound up in the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers, 2011 to 2014. Welcome, Coach Hansen. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you very much. You really covered my history right there. That's exciting to hear. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk some ball. I'm excited to, talk ball with our staff and players in this last week. It's still on, Zoom calls and things like that, but it just feels a little bit closer. So the progress and the excitement is definitely growing within our staff and building and team.
Now, Peter, today there was an announcement. UNLV Rebel Football signed Jeremy Darlow, the noted brand consultant. What are the plans within the football department?
I think it's another aspect of Coach Arroyo and his desire just to educate our guys in every aspect of life, football, future, for our guys to start to think about building their own brand, and for our guys to think about what they represent out to the world and things like that. So being the first on the West Coast and to have a partnership like this and just the overall education to our guys is really the direction that Coach Arroyo aims for.
Now, Coach Hansen, the Fertitta football complex, it reopened on Monday for voluntary workouts. What has it been like, the climate there on campus now with the Fertitta complex reopening, and have a lot of players been coming through?
A good number of players have been coming through, all the ones that are safe to come through related to travel and quarantine and following the guidelines and rules that are set up. I want to say it's just like it was before we left, except people are wearing masks, walking back and forth past each other in the hallways and things like that. But like I mentioned earlier, the excitement is growing just by seeing guys moving weights around and things like that. So it's been an exciting week just to kind of almost stretch our legs, stretch our wings, however you want to say it. It's getting back to work, and it's been fun.
We invite all of you fans once again to get on board and ask questions for defensive coordinator Peter Hansen. I know on social media, a lot of you folks have a lot of questions about the football program, and I wanted to jump into something schematically and talk about what you'll be running defensively this year, the 3-4 defense. With this scheme, I guess, Coach, you could defend better against spread offenses, and at times you could have 7-8 DBs. If you'd like to talk about the multiple looks that you can show from this defense.
Well, just in our base looks, we can, have just multiple different alignments from our guys up front. And a big part of why I like that 3-4 base look is you could do a lot of different things, all looking the same to start with. So that's a big part of what I like as far as confusing offenses and attacking offenses and being sound on our end. And then when we, move into sub packages, as you mentioned, adding DBs to the field, we could change up the fronts, of course, but, the variety and the flexibility to be able to add DBs and keep the same drawings, keep the same scheme drawings that our guys have been looking at, and maybe one guy's doing something different is, more of that flexibility that we talk about, more of that possibilities and ways to attack offenses and still be sound at the same time.
Coach Peter Hansen is with us. And when we last spoke on National Signing Day, you said, Coach, that you were going to be building an aggressive attacking defense. Has it been a major setback to not have the benefit of spring ball or spring camp? And how are you and the staff able to evaluate talent?
I think there's a couple parts to that question. It's obviously a setback not to see the guys on their feet running around in spring practice. But the other side of that coin is everybody in the country was on the same page as us as far as being in that setback. So, we really tried to be creative and tried to be positive thinking and progressive as far as different ways to teach our guys and different ways to install our defenses, whether it was Zoom meetings or just texting or whatever we had to do to, install our scheme, our first year scheme. So as far as that part goes, I've been actually really encouraged as far as the learning of our guys and the drive to learn and the drive to get better within those type of meetings and environments. And then the next part, evaluating talent, that's the tough part as far as the guys we have on campus. We got to witness a little bit of the winter conditioning in those windows when we were allowed to be out there and see the guys move around. And, we have that in our minds as far as our own talent. And then recruiting talent wise, the only part we lost is the in-person stuff, which can be huge in some cases, but we're looking at game film just like we would any other time in any other year. So that part maybe, a little less of a setback, I would think.
At
Tony,
this point,
Tony,
go ahead, Desiree.
So,
Yes.
Coach, I know you come from a coaching family. But you're going to be leading our young men, and you're going to be impacting their futures and their lives. I'm sure the folks that are watching would like to know a little bit more about you and why is it not necessarily just your resume, because you're very accomplished, but why is it you coach? What do you love about coaching?
Great question. And I grew up obviously in a coaching family, so I'm sure it's in my blood somewhere. The first time I really got that itch to coach, I was actually in Denmark in a kind of a player coach basketball role. And I had to coach youth teams. And and I was an assistant coach on one of the girls' youth teams. And the head coach had maybe his day job or something where I had to run practice. So I said, hey, I'm going to install some of the stuff we used to run at Arizona or in college or in high school, wherever it came from. And I said, okay, let's install this play. So I started step by step with these girls that spoke English but pretended not to. And we got it. We got the play, and they figured it out. And I think it was that night I called my dad and I said, oh, okay, I got the bug. When I get home, I want to work with you. And, it really started there.
Awesome. Sorry to interrupt, Tony.
Terrific. Great question. And at this point, Coach, nearly every position up for grabs, would you have to say? Or do we have any spots that are locked down defensively?
I think every year you go into it with every position up for grabs. We want to build a competitive atmosphere. We want young guys that come in. We want sophomores, juniors, seniors, all to feel like when they go to practice and get after it and give it their all, that they've got a shot. One of the things that I've noticed at the college level in the 3 years I had at the NFL, the biggest difference, I think, obviously everybody says speed, but I think the biggest difference is in the NFL, those rookies come in and they're trying to take jobs. They're trying to push guys, out of the league and take their job. Whereas the guys that are already there are trying to get the rookies out of the league and keep their job. It's kind of a shark mentality almost. And at the college level, oftentimes you see freshmen kind of trying to wait their turn. And, I'm excited to be under Coach Arroyo because he's brought it up several times in staff meetings that, hey, these freshmen can get on the field. We want them on the field, whether it's special teams, whether there's a package on offense or defense. We want them to know they've got a shot to contribute to wins. And, to come in with that attitude that I'm gonna find a role and take a spot.
We've got a question for you, Coach Hansen, from Carrie S. Do you anticipate working from the field or the press box, and why?
That's one of the toughest questions I've had, whether it was in my interview, whether it's, when I'm talking to my dad over the phone. At this point, I expect to be in the box. I'm not a guy that's going to bounce back and forth either. So I've just got to make that final decision. I'll probably be nudged a little bit by Coach Arroyo as well, but most likely I'll be in the box just for the big picture part of things. And the part I'll miss, I've been on the field the past several years, and the part I'll miss is kind of the juice of the game, the energy of the game. I've been in the box before, and it's very different as far as the energy and the juice is concerned. But there's definitely that big picture aspect where you feel like you can kind of see everything.
Coach, the strength of the 34th defense, primarily the linebackers. You have returning players and a good core. Terrell Hester, Dick Veramontes, Malachi Salu. Plus, you've got junior transfers coming in like Akui Olatoa from Riverside Community College. Are you pleased with the depth that you have at linebacker?
I'm really pleased. I've been working mostly in individual meetings with the inside guys. So you mentioned a few of them. And like I said earlier, I'm so excited with their drive and desire to learn this scheme and to get better, and how one day is generally speaking better than the previous day because of that effort they've been putting in. And then like we mentioned earlier with the winter workouts, seeing those guys move around has been impressive. I'm coming from a place that's been a pretty successful program, and I can easily compare our guys to the previous place I was at. So, the excitement level is high for that group, and not to mention the outside backers, which in the 3-4 they're as critical as anything. Setting edges, sacking the quarterback. It's a big combination of everybody doing their job together. But yes, the linebacking core is exciting to be around and kind of hopefully predict the future, but at least daydream about the future with what these guys can do in the way they move.
We have a question from Josh S. for Coach. How do you transfer the things that you have learned at the NFL level to the college athletes?
Very good. I think some of the things in scheme-wise, it's almost the same. And I took a few things from Stanford that we did not do at the 49ers, and I took a lot of the things that we did at both places. And we're really putting those together. And basically, the first question is this learnable, or is it teachable? And if it is not one of those things, then can we adjust it to where it is learnable or teachable, or do we have to get rid of it? And we've already done some of those shifts as far as what we're installing and things like that. As far as offenses are concerned, they're a little different at the college level than the NFL level. I think they're kind of evening out lately in the last couple of years, but college level is spread out a lot more. So whether we're using different personnel packages, as you mentioned before, or doctoring up scheme a little bit to be a little more sound versus the wide open spread stuff, those are the things we have to adjust to.
Now, Coach, you had players like Blake Martinez at Stanford. Now he was with the Packers, now with the Giants. Bobby Okereke with the Colts, name a couple. And then you also coached with the Niners. We're talking about what you learned and everything else, but you coached Patrick Willis, who I saw you had on a Zoom conference, and he spoke to the team, and Navarro Bowman with San Francisco. Does this get the players' attention when they know that you have coached professional athletes?
I hope it does. I haven't brought it up specifically to them. I try not to be a name dropper, even though sometimes I do. But yeah, having Patrick on with the guys was really exciting for me, just because I think so highly of him as a human, first of all, and then stuff he did on the field is unbelievable in the way he played, and Navarro as well. And I just sent a message to him just telling him he keeps showing up on cut-ups where I'm teaching these guys, our scheme, and he sent something back as far as using their hands. So they're into it, and they're excited for us. And, hopefully the guys, like it, but generally speaking, I think we all know that the guys like to see themselves on film more than anybody else. So this will be good for this time of year when we're installing things, but eventually they want to see UNLV logos and not 49er logos on the film when they're learning new defense.
That's for sure. Another question from Mike D. Do you plan on using a lot of blitz plays, blitz packages to get to the quarterback?
That really depends on how we get to the quarterback, just bringing four. I love blitzes. I love, getting on the whiteboard and drawing them up. I love, moving my pencil around and seeing what works and listening to our, D-line coach and outside linebacker coach and whoever else has an idea of getting to the quarterback. But a lot of coaches have said it in the past, if you can get to the quarterback with four, your defense is that much better for it. So it really depends on our guys as far as what we're going to do. And obviously there's going to be times where we blitz and bring pressure and attack. It's just how do we have to attack based on our talent and the offensive talent.
Hey, Tony, I'm going to jump in because I'm also reading some of these questions and to give Coach a chance to breathe too. Justin Marks asked a question about what do you like best? And I'm going to go with Tony first because Tony, your family dropped you off from New Jersey at UNLV and they never picked you up. So you obviously love Las Vegas. What do you love best about UNLV football? And Coach Hansen, what do you love best about Las Vegas? So Coach Tony, why don't you start us off?
Well, this past week, celebrated 41 years here in Las Vegas. That's right. Your parents just dropped me off here in Las Vegas, and I graduated from UNLV. Love everything about Rebel football, Rebel basketball, all of our athletics programs. But I think what's most exciting is that just the new vision, again, with Rebel football. And of course, with the new Fertitta complex and with Allegiant Stadium, it's going to be second to none. And then just the excitement. I was telling Desiree earlier that the excitement that Coach Arroyo and his staff bring. I watched Coach Arroyo yesterday on the Rebel Caravan, and I was ready to run through a wall. It wouldn't be advisable, but absolutely love it. And I just like, all the excitement that it brings. And I've always been a believer in this program. And I think for fans that have suffered for long periods of time, I think that we're going to finally see something break through here. Coach?
I think the first word that pops into my mind is a little bit of a surprise before I got here is community. Before getting here, I used to think of Las Vegas as the Strip and didn't know anything else basically. And getting here and that word community is a surprise of how you kind of feel it when you're around this building or at any events that we had before quarantine started, that people are into it, people care, and have some pride in this community. So that surprise is part of why me and my family love it so much. My wife and kids got out here probably about 2 or 3 weeks before quarantine really started. And every day I'd get home and my wife would be like, I love it here. I'm so glad we're here because of whether it's so many parks nearby or that community aspect, or it just seems like it's really well planned as far as how they built things. I mean, everything seems 5 minutes away, whether it's Costco or the gas station or whatever. So those things have been what we like best about this city.
Awesome. Thank you. And basketball. Tony, have you seen Coach Hansen's video on his 40th birthday of him slamming it?
Yeah, I did. I was very, very jealous.
That was my
I wish I could have touched rim at 40. Coach, man, you played 2 sports at U of A, football and basketball.
I did. I like to say I played. I had really good seats for the games is the real reality of things. Football, I had a way to get in games and go try to block field goals and things like that. A little less on the offense or defensive side and more mop-up duty as far as that goes in basketball. They used to call us Gumbies that sat on the bench at Arizona basketball. That started before I was one of the Gumbies, but one of my claims to fame, I think in the long run, I might have seen minutes in 7 games in 2 years. And we won all 7 of those games, obviously, because I only went in when we were blowing people out. So had a lot of fun with those sports, had a lot of great relationships with those sports. I think in the long run, looking back at things, learning from Hall of Fame type coaches like Coach Tomey and Coach Olson was very valuable, obviously, for me. I mean, with Coach Arroyo having worked for Coach Tomey, a lot of the things that he brings up, I'm like, oh, I remember that from when I was a player. So, I think it was a really valuable experience to do both.
We've got a question from Timmy T. What are the main attributes that you look for in recruits to fit that scheme, to fit your scheme?
There's a couple things. Speed is obviously so huge in our game today, so that jumps out as something that we all look for at all positions. And then you talk about the next thing I kind of look for is, yes, there's the tackling aspect, the physical aspect, and those are all true, but the guys that love the game. And, they're all showing highlight films and things like that, but, the guys that love the game can't hide it. There's a passion that jumps out the screen, and whether it's in their celebration or their effort or whatever it is, the plays they choose to present as highlights are all things that kind of stand out and represent how much they love the game.
Our first winner of the day for the prize pack, Nike Gatorade prize pack, is Sonia L. from Las Vegas, and someone from the UNLV marketing team will be in touch with you shortly. And Coach, will you use within this defensive package hybrid DBs? Like we just had one here at UNLV, Javen White, who started out as a safety and he moved up to linebacker. Now he's with the Raiders. Would you use them as linebackers because of their athleticism, if they fit?
I think absolutely if they fit. The biggest part of that question was the last part is if they fit. And what is our need and who are we playing? And so yes, there's packages where there's 6 DBs, for example. One of those guys would represent that same spot on the diagram that a linebacker would represent. And how much we're in those packages depends really on, again, our guys, our talent, and then our opponent as well.
In the base defense, how are the linemen positioned? Will it be 2 defensive ends and then a nose tackle? In that alignment, what does the front look like?
Day one front would be, a nose on the stripe of the center and ends on the stripe of the offensive tackles. Not to give too much away if Cal people are listening, but there's plenty of different arrangements to put those guys, but that's kind of the first thought. And then outside backers would be outside of those guys. So that's day one. Yes.
Day one. Brandon W. has a coach question. What are your thoughts on versatile players who have the ability to play on both sides of the ball? Do you plan on incorporating any into your scheme? Now, back in the day, Coach, I have to remind you here at UNLV, there was no depth. And so defensive coordinators were stealing players from the offense.
Versatility is another.
You won't have to do that, though, right?
I hope not. Versatility is another of those words that brings us back a couple of questions to the recruiting question. And we love versatility, whether it's multiple spots on defense, multiple spots on the field, adding special teams into it as well, of course. So yeah, versatility is huge. I definitely looking at our guys. I hope the offensive guys can stay offensive guys and defensive guys can stay defensive guys, but we don't have UNLV on our own schedule, right? So if we need somebody on defense, then we need to grab somebody from our own team, no matter what side of the ball they're on. If we need somebody on offense, we need to grab somebody from UNLV's roster and put them on offense as well. So no, we're one big team here. So versatility is huge. We love it, but if we got to take somebody from the other side of the ball, that's part of the deal.
Coach Peter Hansen is with us. We're real excited about Rebel football. 739 fans, get your tickets because there is a lot of excitement and momentum building for UNLV football. And you played Cal while you were at Stanford. So I'm sure you disliked them a lot, and being a Palo Alto guy as well. Can you give the fans a preview of what to expect in the August 29th opener at the brand new Allegiant Stadium? You have faced their head coach, Justin Wilcox, I think 3 times now. But they also have a new offensive coordinator in Bill Musgrave. Did you face him in the NFL, Coach, while you were with the Niners and when he was with Minnesota or Philadelphia?
I faced him when he was in Minnesota in 2012. They actually beat us, which is a shocker. That was the year we ended up going to the Super Bowl. So it was one of those weeks, I guess. But Coach Musgrave is a guy we've obviously been studying quite a bit, and he's a guy that's, generally speaking, other than a stop here or there, been in the NFL. So comparing that with what we know about Coach Wilcox as well, we expect basically Coach Musgrave to do what he's done. And that's that NFL style. It's he'll probably have a fullback. He'll probably have multiple tight ends. So that's what we're expecting. Obviously, it's college football. You could easily spread it all out. He's been with Chip Kelly in the past, so there's definitely some of those possibilities in his scheme as far as spreading out his offense as well. Looked to from a distance as what's he doing this year, and I really respected his schemes. Wherever he's been as a defensive coordinator, his teams play with great effort, and he's a defensive guy. So without talking to him about it and without reading his mind, I think he wants less plays on the field for his defense. So he probably wants his offense to huddle up and slow down and do basically everything that college football doesn't do lately. So my guess is, it'll be similar to those early teen Stanford teams is probably the picture that they want to create.
Desiree, you have a question? Desiree, are you still with us?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We got you now.
Thank you. What advice would you give a young person looking to get into coaching?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's one I face pretty often, whether it's emails or connections through family or friends of people that want to get into it. And basically, first thing I say is every path is different. Oftentimes there's some sort of volunteer role. If they want to get into the college level, you might have to make copies and do not much else for a while. And just like many industries, it's a lot about connections. So just that, get coffee, make copies type of volunteer role introduces you to 10 coaches, 10 or 11 coaches. And that starts your network. And, this profession is a little bit wild as far as how often people move around and things like that. So that network can grow quickly if you're willing to jump in and volunteer. But beyond that, if you already have connections, if you played for certain coaches, contacting all them, that's what I did when I was at the high school level and realized that this is what I wanted to do for a living. I just kept calling all my former coaches, seeing what advice they could give me, asking this very same question and what openings they know about or have. And then it came down to a connection my dad had that really got my foot in the door. So, I mean, it's everybody has a different path for sure, but, creating those connections are number one, I think.
It's a people business, just like athletics in general. It's all about relationships, but you have to outwork everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Putting your head down and making those copies and putting your head up to meet those people are kind of a combination right there that's needed.
And you never know, and never burn a bridge, because you never know who you might be working with in the future. Yeah, good question. Thank you for asking that on our Q&A.
Coach, another question. And as you're going to find out, there aren't a ton of Rebel fans right now, but there is a very rabid base. I mean, these folks are very passionate about UNLV football, and you're going to get a ton of great questions, and they know the game. And Jan N is asking, what do you expect your defense to do? Do you expect your defense to be fully installed before the first game?
The foundation of it will be fully installed, and we are basically testing our limits as far as what we can install, whether it's with player run practices and the virtual meetings we have with our guys. Say, hey, tomorrow these are the calls that you guys are going to run when you run your own practice, and within those virtual meetings, let's push the limits. Let's see how far we can go as far as installation. But this is something I've heard plenty of times. I brought up yesterday that this playbook is really fluid. So there's never an end point to it. And there's just a foundation point. So the foundation of how we see it will be in, and then it'll constantly evolve.
Coach, do you expect these players, when they finally get on the field, to be more mentally prepared than with previous teams that you've been around and coached?
Very possibly. I think with the way we're choosing to teach and install certain things, we're making it player friendly as often as we can. And then, like we've mentioned in a lot of this show, is these guys are hungry to learn, and they're hungry to know, and they're hungry to get better, even though it's just mentally all the time right now, as far as our scheme goes. I think the hunger will allow them to be one of the most mentally prepared or mentally ahead teams that we've been around.
From Tessa W., Coach, how much do you think Allegiant Stadium will help in recruiting players moving forward?
There's not a big enough percentage as far as how much that'll help. It's so huge. Being able to reach out to recruits right now and just sending a message with a picture of the stadium, whether it's progress or what it will be or where it is yesterday, the responses are just so much stronger when I do that, as opposed to, however your workout's been, or that, that sort of question, or anything like that. When the picture of the stadium comes up, it's exciting.
From Chris J, Coach, please tell us a little about the rest of the new coaching staff on defense.
Okay. Our secondary coach is Damon Magazuz, our safeties guy. Comes from really great program with Oklahoma, and just really highly recommended, highly motivated, extremely smart, challenges me every day with really good questions like, Coach, that's not going to work because this, that, and the other. And, I better be prepared when I go into meetings with him around. Trey Watson is our corners coach. And he's been involved with this scheme a little bit at Oregon. And he's been with Coach Arroyo, and he's very similar as far as the energy and the knowledge and the flexibility. And I think that's the thing about this defensive staff, is the flexibility, and saying, hey, we've done this in the past, but we can do this too. And Kenwick Thompson is our outside linebackers coach, who's he's a coaching veteran and extremely smart. He's coordinated in the past, and basically somebody I can lean on to say, hey, I don't quite know the answer of what Mags just asked, right? Or how do I approach this? And I want to install this, that, or something else, and how do we start it? So he's been somebody to really lean on. And Chad Kauhaha being the D-line coach, and really those front guys, Kenwick and Chad, have been guys that I can really, once we get past the scheme and start talking about technique, it's like we've been together many years in a row. Basically knocking guys back and taking air out of the run game and hitting the quarterback. I mean, we're all on the same page as far as that, and it sounds obvious and simple, but when we get into the details of how they're going to coach it in their rooms and how I see it, it's like we've been together, like I said, a long time.
Coach, I want to talk a little bit about the secondary. Jeremiah Houston was headed to UNLV from Long Beach City College a year ago, and now he's finally back with the program. You have him. Could he secure one of the spots? And then there's some holdovers that have a lot of talent. Greg Francis is back, Aaron Lewis, Jamal Ham, and Bryce Jackson. Now, those are guys that also I would expect to contribute.
Absolutely. And expecting any of them to secure a spot is really up to them. And, I think all coaches have said it at one point or another that, we don't really make the decisions as far as who starts and who doesn't. The players make those decisions as far as how well they play, and they make it obvious. So it's really up to them. We recognize the talent just from the movement and the tape we've seen and things like that. But now it's time to put that movement and ability into our scheme, and it's on us a little bit to say, hey, this guy's really good at something. Let's get him on the field. Absolutely. But it's also on them to adapt their game to our scheme as well.
We've got a question from Ben C. Coach, what do you think is UNLV's X factor? What makes us different?
What is the X factor? That's really another question when we're talking about our current players. That's another thing that we almost have to wait for and see once we get these guys on the field. But I'm going to say it as far as the attitude and mentality and things like that. I think maybe that's where the answer really is the guy's mindset, and they're buying in, and they're hungry. And you know what? When we mentioned it earlier, when Pat Willis was on the Zoom with our team, we asked, okay, this situation is very similar to your situation between 2010 and 2011. There was a losing program at the 49ers. 2011, all of a sudden, we're in the NFC Championship game. What was the difference within the locker room? Because us as coaches didn't experience the locker room part of it. We experienced the meeting room and the field part of it. What was it? Why was there the change? And he brought up that word hunger, and it's the mindset. It's everything Coach Arroyo preaches and Coach File as far as mindset and attitude and How are we going to go 1-0 today? And and they preach that it's going to show up in November on 3rd and 1. What we're doing today shows up in November on 3rd and 1. So that has to be the X factor, really.
Now, Coach, I know yesterday when I heard Coach Arroyo speak, Marcus Arroyo, he was talking about recruiting high caliber talent, period, players and coaches. And he gets a Power 5 coach in you. So what was his pitch to you? What brought you to Las Vegas?
I think his pitch was very probably similar to that pitch that he gives to recruits. Because I didn't know about new facilities. I didn't know UNLV was going to not just play in Raiders Stadium. They will have the same stadium as the Raiders. Obviously, different way to say it, but we got our own locker room. It's our stadium too. So that was part of the pitch. My chance to move up. It's being a coordinator is something I've really quietly trained for. Basically my whole coaching career, I think. And, different coordinators that I've worked for, I've kind of bounced ideas off them just to see how they'd react and, take my little notes as far as whether my notes were off their reaction or just what I think might be good. And we're trying some of those things right now. And, but basically the opportunity to move up as far as becoming a coordinator and then the sales pitch of new facilities. You should see the community out here and how behind the program they are and the new stadium.
A question from Carrie S. How does the Fertitta complex compare to other training facilities that you've seen?
Better than most, I think. Coming from Stanford that is in the Pac-12, and basically they built a new wing to their athletic facility the year before I got back. So I experienced two different facilities in my 2 stops at Stanford, and I was really impressed coming back. And there's things about this building that we're in at Fertitta that are better than that. And it's just very simple to say. I mean, walking into the defensive team room, I'm still shocked. I mean, there are theater-style chairs where in previous stops, even at the 49ers, we had carry your own chair in and the old school desk connected to the chair. We have unbelievable defensive team room. That stands out to me probably more than anything, just because I have never had it. But I mean, the weight room is unbelievable. Walk right out the doors of the practice field. I mean, it is a very impressive place to work.
Coach, what were you able to accomplish with the defensive unit during quarantine due to the COVID-19 breakout? You said before a lot of Zoom meetings, and how did you keep everything together?
Combination of the Zoom meetings within, smaller position groups, defensive staff meetings to, we're getting to know each other. We'll probably be getting to know each other for a good while, just as far as different experiences we've had in the past. And, we don't know each other yet as far as defense. So we've got to be around each other as much as possible to get a feel for what each other's thinking, be able to finish each other's sentences, hopefully eventually. As a unit, we did have a couple of unit meetings, and those were a little geared less towards football and more towards, again, that mindset, that attitude that let's go 1-0, and how does it relate to football were some of those meetings. And just getting that winning cultural attitude.
Coach, a question from Isaiah C. What do you want UNLV's defensive identity to be?
Combination of things in being around so many Coach Tomey quotes. Brought that up earlier with Coach Arroyo, having worked for him and taken a lot of ideas from him. Is I don't want him to say how fast we are. I don't want him to say how big we are. I want him to say what great effort that team plays with, how much they love the game, things our guys weren't born with, but have developed. So those things are the kind of things that get me fired up and, get me emotional when we're talking about, gosh, your team plays with great effort. That's what we want to hear.
We've got our second winner today for the UNLV football jersey, and the winner is Jermaine W. So Jermaine, congratulations, and someone from UNLV marketing will be in touch. What did you learn while at Stanford under David Shaw? What's your biggest takeaway, Coach?
Biggest takeaway, I heard him say this the first time I was there. I heard him say it several times the second time I was there, was you've got to coach with your own personality. And the second thing I learned from him is, and one might be bigger than the other, but everybody could see, and he keeps an even keel. He's never too high, never too low. And you see that in the building, you see it in the day-to-day work life experience with him, and you see it on game day. And, the players always end up developing a little bit of that personality of their head coach. And, if you're not freaking out positively and negatively, then the players won't either. So that even keel approach is huge as far as what I've learned, and then coaching with your own personality.
Coach, one of the issues I think in the past for Rebel football, a lot of folks as an excuse said that the stadium is too far away. Now you have a centralized stadium, the brand new Allegiant Stadium. How do we get fans to support Rebel football?
A combination of things that we've talked about a little bit is the community here wants it, and they want a winner here. You just get the feeling. I mean, even if you're not talking directly to somebody, you're feeling that. And I think the proximity is going to be big, just because of the recent history with, professional hockey, all of a sudden showing up here and it booms. I mean, it's, constantly sold out in my understanding, and it's, one of the top tickets that you can get in the NHL. And that's related to the community. That's not related to people coming to town and trying to get in because they're here for the weekend. And I think you're seeing some of the things with Raiders as well. And then, hey, we've always wanted UNLV to be good, and we've always wanted to see them in a great stadium. I think the combination of building that winner will get fans here, and then obviously the stadium will get fans there as well.
Terrific. We have that base of fans. Now we just need to build it and grow on that. 739 fans and UNLVtickets.com. Desiree Reed-Francois, do you have any closing remarks for the fans?
Sure. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Coach Hansen. And thank you to everybody who spent time with us today. You are appreciated, and we cannot wait to see you in the fall. That stadium is a symbol, but the people are the heartbeat. And all of our fans, like Tony and everybody who has watched a lot of UNLV football, we want you to know that we are working very hard to make you proud, and we're going to keep at it. That stadium is world class, just like our fair city, and it's also a great value. So get your friends, buy some tickets, and we can't wait to see you in the fall.
Well said. Thanks again to Desiree Reed-Francois and defensive coordinator Peter Hansen. And we thank everyone for being with us today. Terrific questions. Thank you, Rebel fans. And stay tuned. A lot more coming on the Rebel Caravan. We appreciate you, and take care.
Thank you.